We are women of faith and wives of elders here at the Freeborn Church in San Antonio, Texas, and this is our Perspective. Today, we brought a special guest with us. Her name is Christie Kennell, and I have known her for most of my life. Our parents went to high school together. Christie always wanted to be a mom. That was her dream. And when she married Danny in their marriage counseling, she said, I want 5 kids. And Danny, her husband, said, I want 3 kids. So they compromised. They had 8. But 5 of our boys. And since our topic today is men, 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 and boys to men, we really, she has more experience than the 3 of us combined. And we want her perspective as well. Again, welcome.
So I have a question. Is there a boy crisis in America? According to some experts, there absolutely is a boy crisis in America. And so according to Warren Farrell, Dr. Warren Farrell, who wrote the book Boy Crisis, and also according to Christina Hoff Sommers, who also wrote the book War on Boys, also says that there is a boy crisis in America. It affects us all. So if there is a boy crisis in America, it's not just about the boys. And these are the boys that our daughters will one day marry. And so I think it's a very important issue. So I would like to bring this out, and maybe we can solve the problems of the world.
That would be nice.
Yeah, wouldn't that be nice? That everybody could.
So tell us his
He says that, okay, so Dr. Warren, or Dr. Warren Farrell, he says that there are 3 main causes for the boy crisis. So the first cause is that the boys are deprived of fathers. Okay. The second cause is that there's feminization in the school. So trying to stifle boys' natural masculine ways. And because there's not enough teachers. There's not enough male teachers. 75% of the teachers are feminine. So they not only have a dad at home, they don't have a role model at school where they spend most of their day.
Okay.
So our cause number 3 is that boys don't feel like they have a purpose. Not enough responsibility.
Right.
Okay.
Exactly what does he mean by a boy crisis? You know, what's his definition of that?
They're being demasculinized.
Is that what he's saying?
That's a huge
We're not allowing them to be boys?
Not allowing them to be boys.
They don't feel like they can be a boy?
Yes, they want to drug them, you know.
Yeah, if they have ADD.
Yes, and I know that, you know, people have their side of that whole issue right there. So I don't really want to get into that one, but his main because of that in the schools, and because they're falling way behind academically. So girls are thriving right now. So girls are surpassing boys in college degrees.
We put so much focus for the last.
They're surpassing them academically. Like they're way ahead.
I would totally understand why that happens. They want them to sit down too long.
They can't.
It's like they want them to sit, and it's like,
and that's proven. They have to be active, and
it's like you're trying to make him be still for too long, and you're not engaging him enough.
And that's the difference, I think, because that's kind of the thing I want to bring up today. So how do we combat that as a parent with young boys like that at school? If the school system
if you're putting them in school, that's very difficult. I do know the difference. You know, my son started school in Florida.
Okay.
And boy, totally different than when he was excelling. And he almost drowned when we put him in Texas school.
Why is that?
Because they don't have as much recess, playtime.
Right.
Like when he was in Florida, they had a morning little break. They had a break at lunch. They gave them enough time to eat, and they could go out and play, and they had an afternoon recess.
That was when I was in school.
Right. There was 3 times where these boys could run the fields, okay?
Right. And he was excelling.
Oh, he was doing great, and he loved school. We put him in Texas schools, and the only form of discipline, at least that we experienced, now I know I'm just one person, but if the class was acting up, what did the teacher do? In every grade that he was in, all right, recess is canceled. Well, that's okay for the girls, but it's not okay for the boys.
Not.
And they only had 1 recess. They didn't have enough time usually during lunch, and they had to be quiet during lunch. I mean, they would yell at them.
I think most boys, that's,
Right.
you know.
Oh, ladies, come on. They're just ADD. Let's doctor them up. You know
I'm
what?
not going to do that.
Well, as a teacher, that's one of the things that in my profession I noticed that even a lot of my friends, the boys are misbehaving and right away. They're ADD. Let's talk to the parent. We gotta medicate them.
When they need to get that energy.
Because it makes, I'm sorry.
It makes it easier.
It makes it easier on the teacher.
Yes,
because
it
if you
is.
have to put up with these little boys that are very hyper and you have to put up with them all day long. But I'm sorry, that's no excuse.
If we understand how they learn, they do not learn in that type of an environment.
So then there's a deeper problem to that, kind of changes the subject, still staying with boys, but changing it a little bit. So it seems like the world wants to feminize our boys, right? And so they want to make it look masculinity, well, they want to call it toxic masculinity, because they believe that they are stifling women.
Right.
Okay, and so how do we
Combat that.
Yeah, how would you raise, because I always say we're not raising boys, we're raising men.
Right.
So we're raising our boys to be men, to be fathers, to be husbands, to be citizens, and to love God. And so how do we do that? How do we go from what they're teaching them in the world, and some boys, they're made to feel bad for how they are, like as if they're violent. And so if they cater to their hyperness, whatever you want to call it, they cater to that, well, then we might be teaching them to be violent.
Yes.
And that they're going to grow up and they're going to be abusive.
Well, even the statement, boys will be boys, is getting this very negative, connotation.
So they want to re-educate the boys, tell them that how all this stuff, you think it's natural, but it really isn't. That's because your fathers and your grandfathers are telling you this, but you don't really have to be that way. And it's just so ungodly, and it's sad. And so that makes me so irritated, because women, they think that they want, a sweet feminine man. They want a man.
Well, unless they're wanting to control him.
Right. Well, that is true.
That's not the...
But then how do you respect a man like that? Because women need to respect their husbands, and men need to feel respected.
Right.
That's so important.
It's going to be hard for him to respect himself if that's how the confusion that he's been raised in.
Yes, definitely.
They're trying to also take away competitiveness, which is why they don't want to do.
Which is, I think, is an outlet for guys now. I mean, that's like,
It's how
They show their masculinity.
they're wild at heart, talking about
they
books.
are. And I have that one. That's right.
Like that's how God created
And moms, and so many of these boys are coming from single moms, right? And so we have an adverse reaction towards, many moms do. They want their boys to be in certain things or do certain things because they're like, oh, you're going to hurt yourself. No, don't climb that tree. Don't do that. Which why they need fathers to come in and say, they need to do that. It's okay if they hurt themselves a little bit. And that's I've researched a lot and been learning this for a very, very long time. And I listen to psychologists, clinical psychologists, who say the importance, of boys, especially boys, pushing the limits, pushing themselves, even if they think it's going to hurt themselves. There is obviously, you can't be stupid, right? But letting them letting them push, and that's why they need a dad, because a mom tends to not want to do that. You know, and I remember my husband playing with the boys and being
Rough.
Right. Yes, rough. And I would,
Exactly.
I like that mama bear is coming out in me. And it's like they kept going for more. And I'm like,
They
oh,
wanted
forget it.
That's
These boys are glutton for punishment. Go ahead, go for it.
It's
You
like,
know, whatever.
Rites of passage, you know, when I can whip dad, you know. So definitely. But combating that, I mean, we definitely have. We can't just say, well, it'd be great, you know, if all of them had dads, because they don't all have dads. But I think that we need to look at, I mean, definitely prayer, right? You know, the basic family structure is just disintegrating. Yeah. But we can also look and say, how can we support those that we do know? You know, maybe you're an uncle, maybe you're a grandfather. You know,
that role model.
They need that role model.
They do need that role model.
Because again, in the school systems, they don't have you got to have a male role model. You know, it's just extremely, extremely important. And then another thing, the other one, cause number 3 was that they need to have a purpose, which means they need responsibility. Right. They need to grow up, and because that's how boys. I always say, boys are meant to get married. Without they remain boys. Yeah. Right. Girls are not that way. Right. Girls don't. Girls they want a home. They need a stable place. They want to have children. They need a stable environment to raise those kids. And so that's on their mind. I don't. It doesn't matter what job you have. It doesn't matter how independent you are. That's how most women. Most women think that they need that stability. So they're going to do that with or without a man. Right. But a guy who doesn't have that responsibility, so many of them just remain. It's very hard. You have a lot of self.
Growing up, you mean? They just
fit
into their role.
Because they need the responsibility. They need to have a family and a wife and a child to take care of. I just see that. It's so they just remain boys. They just remain boys. So many of them do.
I think we do need to educate the people that we know, that we have an influence on. Right. You know, there are so many facts that back this up and how important that is. And instead of just, if we can be that educator to the ones that our circle of influence, at least, to combat that wave that's just washing over them, and celebrate, you know, celebrate their manliness, you know, and encourage and you know, praise anytime they're, you know, showing these manly qualities.
Enforce the importance of them being godly men in their homes.
Yes. Right. And that God has a purpose for them.
Very good. Very good. Well, thank you all for that. That was very interesting. Yeah.
Very
okay. Thank you.
Topic. Time for my book reviews, and I have a bunch today because these topics that we've talked about, there's a lot of resources out there, which I want you to have. The first one I want to talk about is Dr. Emerson Eggerichs, which he did the Love and Respect book, okay? He has one about moms with their sons, how to show them respect. That's what they need more than they need your love. And it's amazing listening to it and the comments that have happened when they just applied that with their sons. I started doing it after I watched after I went through the Love and Respect seminar. I said, you know, this should apply to my son as well, you know. And I started but now he's created a book specifically for that. And I would recommend that to you, any age, all right? Then another one that talks about the manlyhood and how important the father's role is Raising a Modern Day Knight by Robert Lewis, all right? Excellent book. It's geared to dads, but I read it anyway. But it tells how important it is. How important it is that they are shown what it is to be a man, clarified and reinforced and celebrated, and what you can do. And I think that would be very important too. And then as we have our older sons, you know, that are dealing with some of the topics that we've talked about, and they get caught up. You know, they say that 65% of men have a problem with like pornography and different issues. This is also a very good book for that. The best that we have found, me and my husband, and the counseling that we do about if you have a problem with pornography or lust and you're really drowning in it and you're not seeing that you're able to pull yourself out of this. This is At the Altar of Sexual Idolatry. It's by Steve Gallagher, and he was deep in this for 12 years. He's very open and frank of how he was able to pull out of this and become an overcoming a victor, a Christian victory. And his wife, what she had to deal with when, that's horrible. And she also discusses, from her point of view as well. But that's very good, and it's very biblical. It gives you a lot of biblical verses and how to overcome. And then this isn't the book either, but John Eldredge, he writes Wild at Heart. And we try to keep a copy on hand all the time, and I give them away constantly. And this is an excellent book to understand males. My husband, he even says that every man should read it, and every woman should read it if she wants to understand her man. But it just says that God designed them, that way.
Which one,
he
that
celebrates it. He writes a bunch of books. If you've read this one?
No.
Oh,
no,
okay. This I'm just saying because it's John Eldredge, and this is every book I have read of his has been good, and he really does focus on manliness, a godly man, and I just picked this one up. So I'm not going to recommend it, but I can recommend the author from several of the other books, but specifically the topics that we were talking about he really addresses, and I think you will not be disappointed with any of those books. Did I give all 5? Okay, great, thank you.
This is our beauty tips segment. Welcome back. Today we're going to talk about nails and nail health and nail care. So we're going to keep it short. I just have a couple of little tips that might be helpful to some of you. I've always, tried to take care of my nails. I don't always do a great job, but I had read an article that there are certain tips that you can use and apply to yourself that make you look put together, simple things, just simple little things that just make kind of an overall statement that you're somebody who cares about yourself. And one of those was nails, that your nails look nice. So it doesn't necessarily even mean painted, at least not in my opinion. I don't think you have to have your paint. I think natural nails look very, very pretty. And so when you have natural nails though, one of the things that I think a lot of women and girls, especially girls, teenagers, tend to neglect is their cuticles. And your cuticles can grow out and look really nasty, okay? Like really nasty and really dry and just kind of make everything. And your manicure, like if your cuticles aren't taken care of, even your manicure looks bad, your painted nails look bad. So one thing that I have kept in my purse for years is I keep a cuticle. Oh, actually I keep one in my bathroom. This is a vitamin E cuticle oil, and it's by Sally Hansen. I think Sally Hansen, I don't know if anybody else sells it. You can probably buy expensive brands at Sephora, but this is drugstore. This one I always keep it in my purse because this one doesn't. This one I'm afraid it's going to leak out. So this one I keep it in my purse, and it has just a little brush, and then you just squeeze out the oil. I'm telling you, it'll last all day, even through hand washes and everything. It'll just last all day. Then I have this little tool here. It's a handy little tool. This helps push. It softens your cuticles, conditions your cuticles so they don't look dry and nasty. Push them back with this little thing here. You can just get, again, at a drugstore. On this side, this cleans the inside of your nails. Very important to have your nails clean. Push your cuticles back. Then this is really handy. I love this thing, and this I've had ever since I was in beauty school. This will last forever. And these are cuticle nippers, and I keep these with me all the time. And I just go through and I trim my cuticles. Very easy to use. You do not have to be an expert. Keep your nails clean, no polish. I think unpolished nails look better short. That's just my opinion. So if I'm not going to polish them, my nails are always very, very short. Always have the cuticle oil, and my cuticles are pushed back. Now, to make your manicure look better, like when you do have painted nails like I do, and then it starts to grow your nails, because this is the shellac, I always still use the cuticle oil because it makes it look prettier. Like when they're starting to grow out, sometimes all the cuticle looks all dry and they just look really bad. So always put the cuticle oil. It makes your nail polish look even nicer than it would without it. But if you get regular nail polish, just regular paint, it starts chipping off, or even this will chip off after a while, please, please, I beg you, when it starts to chip off, take it all off. Okay, there is nothing worse than half-painted nails, all nasty. That is such an eyesore for me. It just looks really bad. Just take it all off. Do us all a favor. Nobody wants to see your hands look like that. That's just my opinion. All right. I'm going to hand it over to Linda, because Linda had something that she wanted to share with us.
Well, don't look at my nails. But Avon does sell all of that as well.
Oh,
they have
awesome.
the cuticle cream, and I do use that. Okay, I want to talk about not makeup, but earrings. And because Christie is our guest today, this is her daughter and her husband make these. He is a fisherman. And he takes these lures, and then she puts them together and makes earrings out of them. And I just love these earrings. I have several of them. And don't you think they're alluring?
They're called Hooked on You, right? I think that's their name.
Hooked on You? Love it.
Oh, I love it. She takes all different kinds. Yeah, you know. None are the same.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us for our beauty tip of the day.
The topic that I want to bring to the table today is the 3 different types of men. Now, I get this from this book, Created to Be His Helpmeet by Debbie Pearl. And people who know me very, very well know that this is probably one of, outside of the Bible, one of the books that has impacted and changed me more than anything else. And she in here talks about 3 types of men, and it was very interesting because we all like to take those personality tests. You take them in your work and are on the magazine and online, and you find out what kind of personality you are, and who you will who you work best with, and strengths and weaknesses. And so this is kind of that focused on men, and to me, I thought it was very interesting, on how to relate, and I really liked her theory. This is not doctrine. It's her theory, but it's good. She has it based on some good verses. She talks about how let us make man in our image, and she has had more experience, in ministry and dealing with all different types of men in their walks of life. And so she loves to observe people. So she has a lot of information and experience to go on to make these conclusions. And she was saying, okay, she has seen 3 distinct patterns of men that copy or are made in the image of God. And he's one God, but he is 3 personalities, right? 3, the triad, the Trinity. And so she said, you're going to find some men that take after God the Father. And those are called command men. Now, because they are the born leaders, all right? You're not going to find as many of them in society, because you can't have all chiefs and no Indians, right? You can't have all CEOs. You got to have somebody performing the work. And then she says there's going to be people, men who favor more the Holy Spirit. And she calls them the visionaries, all right? And then the 3rd type, of course, is Jesus Christ, and he is the intercessor, the priest, or the servant. And so anyways, I'm going to go over these types of men, and then I thought y'all could tell us, where you see maybe your husband, because I have a question at the end on this, but or your kids or sons. It's not a hard question. You won't fail it. It's not a test.
It's a pass. It's no pass fail.
Yes, that's right. But anyways, okay, so going back to the Mr. Command Man, they, like I said, born to lead. They And when I'm saying these characteristics, I'm not being politically correct. And this is not in any way a man bashing, because you need these type of men, and they are naturally in their way. But they see things very black and white. They don't see things very gray. Your visionary is going to see things mainly gray and not black and white. But you need all of these, right? Okay, so I just want to make sure out there, you know, I'm not bashing men. I like men. Okay. So they usually do more than what's required of them. Now you think about that, because they're going to be your CEOs. They're going to be the people who've started businesses. They're going to work, you know, the 60, 80 hours, whatever it takes to get the job done. And they're less tolerant, you know, of things. Like I said, if they see black and white, you know, they're going to have a hard time tolerating certain things. They're not as yielding, but that's because they're the command men. They can make decisions quickly. They can assess a situation, and they can make that decision quickly. And you'll see how that contrasts with the other types of men. And they should not feel bad about that. God's given them, you know, where they can assess that situation quickly and make that decision. But they are uncomfortable comforting. Okay, they are. That makes them uncomfortable, sharing their deep feelings with people. You know, because you think of the role that they're in, and so you're going to see that they're not going to be sharing. You know, and if there is one of those share moments, they're usually going to start, you know, pulling away. But they're very sufficient in themselves. They know, they look at the situation, I can do this. You know, they don't have to have, you know, well, if I had so-and-so and so-and-so, you know, I might could get the job done. They're like, no, I can get this done. And they can be very controlling. And again, I'm not meaning that in a negative way. You need somebody to take charge. You know, if you had a general say, okay, everybody, this is what I'm thinking about doing. I want to let's take a vote. No, he's going to bark out the orders, and he's going to say charge, and he needs the people, whether he's wrong or right. And these command men, they don't care. They don't care whether you think they're right or they're wrong. They know they're right, and they're going to move forward. But again, we need these kind of men. There are micromanagers. They want to know what's going on, you know, and they highly value those who win their confidence. If you win a command man's confidence, you are highly valued and esteemed in his eyes. That's what he will value if he has confidence in you. And they're not concerned, like I said, whether you like him or not. Who cares? He doesn't care, because it's all about the job. They're headstrong. They're demanding. And they do demand respect, you know. But at the same time, they're very protective and very supportive. They enjoy being served, you know, and but they don't particularly like serving others, because again, their personality is that command. Their values, they highly value loyalty, obedience, you know, not asking a ton of questions before you do it. Hey, if I said to do it, just get it done. Faithfulness. And then what they do is they see the big picture. All right. And they strive to help the greatest number of people. You know, that's what really motivates them. They'll see this. Okay, this impacts us. You know,
so they're not good at taking an individual and ministering to that individual.
It's the mass, because they're the leaders. So they're going to lead the mass.
Kind of lead the army.
And what's the best way to do that? So that's kind of the command man in a nutshell. And then Mr. Visionary, again, he represents the Holy Spirit. Oh, let me back up. Okay, just like when you take personality tests, you're not going to find one man that's just solely this. They're gonna all have parts of these three, all right, but they're going to be dominant in one of these types. All right, and they'll have like a secondary. Okay, and then the other one they can fit into the third role, but it's not as comfortable for them. It's not their natural. All right, so Mr. Visionary, the Holy Spirit. So this is someone, and I disagree with her. She says that they're not very good at comforting, but I disagree, because I'm married to a visionary. But the Holy Spirit is our comforter.
Yeah.
So I deviate a little from her on this.
How dare you?
This is what, yes, I know. So just so you know, Debbie, if you're watching. Anyways, because if you're saying that they're the Holy Spirit has been given us to comfort.
That's true.
All right, but
Good
they are the
point.
shakers. They're the pot stirrers. They're the change agents. They're the dreamers. They're the inventors. They're the prophets. They're the ones that have these gifts, you know. They're the street preachers. They're tenacious. They're very, they either see things in the microscope or they see it in the telescope, and very little in between, you know. And they can get so tunnel vision in that, which is good. You sometimes need that, right? To get something accomplished, you need someone who can just focus on a single issue. They can't take, you know, it all at once. They're right now, they're you know, leading that crusade.
Yeah.
And that's what they've got. You know, they're rich in experience. They hate the status quo. They are confrontational. They actually love confrontation, you know. They're highly, you know, can organize, you know, rally the troops, so to speak, you know, get it all together. And
They have a little bit of the command in them.
Yes, they
Sounds
do.
like have a little bit of that.
These are the trailblazers, they say, the trailblazers who probably, you know, cut the roads out to the west. But then you needed, you know, the steady men, the farmers to come in, and the CEOs to get the businesses going and run that railroad out there. But you needed the trailblazers who could see the vision of what could happen, you know, out west. But they can pick up and move easily. You know, they're very flexible that way. And sometimes they might not even have a rock solid reason of why. But they, you know, this is the right thing to do, and we're moving. Okay, pack it up and let's go.
Put this head mic in there.
Yeah.
Caution
That's
to
what I
the wind.
said.
Right,
This
it's
is
caution to the wind.
Caution
Let's
to
just
the
try
wind.
it. Right?
And
How are you going to
life
know
is
if you don't try?
adventure.
Yeah. It's an adventure.
Right, exactly. They
those
are
poor
harder. Yes. They're harder for others to appreciate because they can be so, you know, and dogmatic about certain things, right? But so they're either very well loved or very well hated. There's not a lot. You're not wishy-washy on visionaries.
Yeah.
You either agree with them and you're sold onto their dream, or you're like, man, that guy's a kook, you know, whatever. But they have a greatness of soul, and everybody usually, you know, believes that.
Yeah.
They feel called to a higher standard. They don't stand in judgment if someone else doesn't feel that, but they feel this calling to always do, you know, excel and carry that high standard. They're very enthusiastic and they're very animated in what they do. And they can be, like I said, I see them as a comforter. They're very willing to comfort.
I totally have one of these as you're going.
Exactly. See, you can relate. And that's one reason too. I want your input because you have so many that you can relate to on this. So now the last is Mr. Steady. And because they're not the command, the CEO, and the visionary, they sometimes they don't get as recognized, but that's okay. They're not into it for the glory. They're not into it for the recognition. They're the faithful. They're the servant. They're the mediator. You know, they're very caring. They're a rock, you know, for others because they're so faithful. They're very deep. They're very wise. But it's not like that rapid. It's like that river that's very deep, but it looks like it's still, but it's not, you know. They don't make snap decisions, and that frustrates other people. Usually they're wives.
They have to think and
because they want to weigh it all out. That's why they're not the CEO. They're not that general. The charge, you know, they're going to weigh, well, let me think about this a little bit longer. But, okay, so they don't tell others what to do. They just rather do it. They just get there. They see the job, and they're going to get it done. They'll fix everyone else's stuff before their own. So like the mechanic, you know, everybody's cars are fixed, but their cars, they have 5 or 6 cars in the driveway, right? You know, the carpenter, you know, or the plumber, you know, he has all the plumbing problems at home, but he'll get up in the middle of the night and take a call and go help his mother-in-law, you know, at her house, that sort of thing. They would rather serve than be served. So like if their wife or who somebody wants to serve them, that makes them uncomfortable. Whereas see, like the CEO, yeah, bring it to me. I want that now.
I have one of those too.
Exactly. But this one would rather, oh, no, let me get that for you.
Yeah.
No, let me do this. Right. You know, they're very strong, but they're very quiet. So a lot of times they can be misinterpreted. They're gentle and they're wise. They're not given to extremes. They're steady. That's why they're called, you know, Mr. Steady. They handle the jobs that few else will take. Because remember, they're not in it for the glory. Right. They're in it, then so they'll see something that needs to be done. They don't care whether anybody recognizes them, and they'll do the dirty jobs. They are not idle. They're not lazy. They don't find a lot of time to play. And they don't like to see that in others, especially their wives. If you're married to a Mr. Steady, they would have a hard time with you being, you know, a couch potato. He wants you to have projects too. You know, he wants to see that you're not idle. They're very selfless and they're very sacrificial. And you can see how that relates to Jesus, right? You know, they'll lay down their life, you know, easily. Of course, we know that that's the nature of man anyway. They'll protect their own and lay down their life. But this one is even more so outside of even his inner circle or his family. He's very, has the servant attitude. So those are the three, you know, types of men. Did that come as a surprise? I know, you know, to any of y'all. Do you think that's you said you could relate?
As I listen to, well, I just have 5 boys and my husband.
And your husband. So
Danny's totally steady. My husband, he's the steady.
I would totally agree with that.
What I found in all 3 of them, those are just like amazing qualities.
Yes.
For all 3. Right. So any person who falls under any one of those categories is an amazing
They're all needed.
Man. Yes, they're all needed.
I was talking to a friend the other day, and she was talking to her daughter had broke up with this boyfriend, and I was curious because they've been together. I thought, why did they break up? And she said, well, he's not romantic. He's not this. And I said, you know, sometimes the steady is good.
Yeah.
You know, I said sometimes the romantic is, you know,
They fizzle out.
Right. Yeah. I said sometimes steady's good. Right. Sometimes it's, you know, they're dependable. They're, you know, you can count on it.
What I found that not every female personality is compatible with some of those qualities.
No, that's right. But definitely you should find out what you're, you know, you're more like if you're looking for a husband and realizing, you know, what you'd be taking on.
Yes. And because not everybody could handle certain types.
And they do look very specifically to the type of woman that they usually are attracted to.
That's right.
You know,
that's right.
Not until you marry and go, uh-oh.
Right.
Personality.
Yes.
And got a lot of
and there's a lot of adjusting anyway when you're married.
Already.
So you just don't need that piled up.
Very interesting.
But anything else on that?
I think that's really good. I think it's important to understand the qualities of men before you get married, to see what kind of husband you might live with might be compatible to your own personality. So it's good to take your own personality test. I took a personality test. It was I actually paid money for this one. And I kind of knew my personality. There was some things I was disappointed in myself. I'm like, oh, I thought I was going to score higher, but that personality test that I took showed you things that you have to work on.
Strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, strengths and weaknesses. So I learned a little bit about myself, but I think all that is really good, right?
And relating to our sons as well, because you're going to have several, like she has several, and so she needs to know that when in her encouragement.
And also find in the ministry when you're counseling other women or even your own daughter-in-laws, or it's good to understand people's personalities so you can relate to them better. Say, look, I think it's great to understand their personalities, value what they have, and try to make them out to be the best versions of themselves. So I love figuring out how people tick. I mean, I'll lay you down on the couch and tell me all your problems. I love that stuff. So this is right up my alley.
All right. Well, thanks, ladies. I enjoyed that.
Today's segment, we're going to be discussing the Me Too movement versus the innocent until proven guilty. And we're going to be discussing the Me Too movement mostly because I found that very interesting, because at first I was against it because I didn't even know anything about it. But now that I looked into it and we're going to discuss it more fully in a few minutes, I just thought I came about to change my mind about it and why.
Well, I would love to hear what you said that you first were against it, and then what you read that changed your mind.
The way I felt was like, oh, there go those liberal women again with another movement, without even giving them a chance to find out what it was truly about. And then with the Kavanaugh hearing, I kept seeing and hearing more about it. I decided to look. I thought, well, I haven't given them a chance. Let's look into it. We're in our own little world, thinking everything is cool and everything else, where everybody's happy. And when all of these women, and not just women, it was men also, they're also being harassed. And then I discovered that it's happening not just, it's happening in the schools. I'm a teacher, and I've heard about principals, other teachers that harass children, they abuse children, and it's happening in the politics, it's happening in the movie world, it's happening in sports.
Churches.
Oh, it broke my heart whenever I was hearing about pastors that are abusing, taking their position and molesting. And so this I found out to be, it's everywhere. Not just in the workplace. Where the majority of it, that is where it's happening. And therefore I thought, this is something we need to be aware of. We're going to be, talking to our children about it, talking to our young sons, our young daughters. This is something that I think everybody needs to be aware of. And not to be paranoid, but at least to know it's out there. And now I'm changing my mind about it. What's happening, it's a good thing. I think the Me Too movement is a good thing. But then, of course, like everything else, man comes along, and what comes up out of that? The what? Believe woman movement. You don't question women. They say I've been sexually abused. Gotta accept it. Take them at their word. And that's where I began to.
I think so too. I think, when the Me Too movement first came out, I don't know if you followed that on Twitter, but it was like huge, right? Everybody says it now, Me Too, Me Too, Me Too. Yeah, and I think I think that it was really good. I think it
gave them a voice.
Yes. Yeah, it shed light on the abuser, the sexual misconduct. Then it kind of like, after a while, I remember like reading it and all these Me Too's and all these Me Too's, and then I'm like kind of rolling my eyes at some of this stuff. Like really? Because they want to categorize all
the different kinds of abuse.
Yeah, they want to like put it all in one spot, in one category. Like it's all, and I just think not all women are.
Well, I think what happened, I think, is that, or what the sad part of it is that it got to the point where someone couldn't even ask someone out on a date that it wasn't sexual harassment for some guys, which is like they're, so it made it bad for the people who really were sexually abused.
Exactly. And it became so much so that way that you dismiss the real,
and it's done a disservice to the real.
Exactly. Right. It is like,
and a lot of mixed signals and confusion.
Yeah, because there's a difference between. You can't lump them all the same together. There's like, every crime is different and it's rated differently, and you can't put molestation in the same category as, well, he touched my face and I felt intimidated and I felt scared, or whatever else, we got drunk And then the next day, I regretted it. Yes. So here, you know what? Hashtag me too.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And that's been known to happen.
Yes, that's been known to happen. I mean, girls are stupid. They can act real stupid. Mm-hmm. And that boys can't too. I mean, we all know that. I mean, any parent knows
He said, she said, and you know, how do we get to the bottom? We don't want anybody to be abused. We don't want anybody to be taken advantage of, but we also don't want false accusations that ruin, you know, maybe, I mean, I think of Joseph in the Bible. You know, I mean, he was virtuous. You know, I mean, she was coming on to him every day.
And the idea that girls or boys, that girls or women wouldn't lie about something like that, that's just not so.
That's happened too.
It just is. I mean, think about that case when all those little kids way back, I want 80s, I think it was, those
when they
daycare.
Right.
And they manipulated those kids into saying a story, and it ruined those poor people's lives. And sometimes that happens. And sometimes girls are scared because they don't want to get in trouble. They know they made a mistake or they did something, and then, you know, they'll lie about it and ruin somebody's life over it. That's, I mean, it's terrifying if you have sons in college. I know. You
have to have a conversation with them. I mean, this, you know, my son's in high school, and this definitely prompted me to have a conversation with him. I mean, I've had conversations with him before. It's not like this, you know, we started here, but it was definitely, this is an opportunity. Please reiterate, you know, with your kids, talk about the scenario. You know, like I talked to my son, I said, okay, so let's look at this situation. How could have this been avoided? You know, don't go to those kind of parties. You know, if you're really wanting to make sure, yes, you have to put these boundaries. You don't go to those kind of parties, or you make sure you're never alone, you know, with somebody that could, where there's precautions. There's precautions that you can take. And both sides, you know, you need to do that with your daughters too. Exactly. You know, when they talked about, you know, this happening every weekend. Hello, you know, y'all could find, you know, parents, you know, gone every weekend, you know, and if you knew this happened, why did you go back every weekend? That's it's like, you know, we're not that. It makes it harder than to, you know,
like that. It just doesn't
believe,
make sense.
you know, the credibility there, because if this was going on all the time.
We tell everybody to be safe, right, and to like with the vice president, right? He takes his wife whenever he's going to be with another woman, make sure that, you know, she's there. And now what are they doing? They make fun of him because he does that. Well, you don't trust women. Well, hello. You know, there's a reason for it, especially what can happen, what can come out of it.
No, you have to take safety cautions just like you do with anything. And we're supposed to be wise. You know, if we teach our sons to respect a woman, yes, they can still get in trouble, but if they put some guidelines, you know, hopefully they'll be. But again, look at what happened to Joseph. I mean, it can happen. It can happen to an innocent man. You know, there's enough bad situations that have happened that.
So try to instill in our young boys the friends that they choose, the parties that they go to, who their girlfriend is, who they date, just, you know, and to the makes it that much more important to choose your friends. Christian, if you can. I know it's really hard because you go to public schools, but you know, Christian friends that go to church, that have good parents, and you know, I mean, all of that is just important.
I think it is a constant, constantly having this conversation. Don't think that just because you said it once, you know, that it's seeped in. Maybe 1 point seeped in. So you got to do it again and do it again. Maybe they'll get the second point and the third point.
There's some things you have to constantly reinforce, like you're saying. I totally agree with that. And you lay the foundation. And so in this segment, with the Me Too movement, I was enlightened by it. I agreed with it. I think we need it made me aware of what can happen, what's going on out there. And then it also about Believe Women. I discovered that no, you can't do that. You have to, you know, can't.
Well, there has to be due process with women, with anybody. You can't just accuse somebody and expect to be believed. And then there's the other side. There's a reason why we feel compelled to believe the women, because there was a time where it was real hard. Like women didn't want to come out and say that they've been abused in any kind of way, because they feel like they're going to be accused of the way they were dressed and you know, all these things. And
well, in the way the Bible, I was looking at this, the way the Bible calls it is the men have humbled that woman. So you think of what they're dealing with. It says that they've humbled the maiden or whatever.
Yeah.
And it has. They feel so vulnerable. They're scared. They don't know. You know. They're embarrassed.
Yeah.
You know. And so initially, yes, I'm sure it's very difficult.
Be blamed.
Yes,
What did you
yes.
do to provoke
Right,
that guy?
Exactly.
The guy can't help how he feels. Guys are guys, boys are boys.
No, we
and
have to.
so there's been, and I don't know if that's like everywhere, you know. But you know, there's that mentality. That's what they're afraid of, and it used to be very, very hard to convict a rapist, from what I understand, because it's his word against hers. And so they want to say, well, what were you wearing? Were you dancing? Were you drunk? Were you this and were you that? And then all he has to do is deny it. Now they have DNA and you can do things like that, but still.
I mean, it's
hard.
coming, but it is very difficult, yes.
Yes, very difficult. So when this movement came out,
Exactly.
then, you know, you kind of shed more light on it. So they wanted to protect women more, and it has just become this where there's no due process. You can pretty much ruin anybody you want to. I mean, seriously, you really can. Because a man defending him, so they just don't care about the men and what they have to say anymore. At least not certain people.
Well, it just seems like
the media
it's
or
going
to the other
we need
the pendulum
both
has
sides, yes,
gone all the way this side
out of reaction,
women.
and we do need that voice to be heard and out there, and we need to be a knowledgeable.
Exactly.
But yes, that pendulum needs to come back.
And there has to be proof. You know, you have to take it to the
That's
courts,
right.
have proof, go
Not just believe
and let
just
the
because
judge
someone
decide.
says something.
I mean, me personally, I can roll my eyes and go, give me a break, but I really don't know.
Right.
I mean, there has
well,
to be.
and you have to put ourselves in that position. If it was our husband or if it was our son that was accused that way, we would want there to be a preponderance of evidence, right?
Yes.
You know?
I want to see the medical report. I want to have a blood test. I want to know everything if you're going to accuse my son or my husband of something like this. Well, yeah.
But hopefully, yes, we are also, though, strengthening the voice so that when these things truly do happen, that they feel that they can, make that statement and say,
yes,
I have been.
And maybe it'll
violated.
discourage men from, you know, that that people can come forward.
Because they know that there's going to be.
I don't know. Not that I feel sorry for the men, those kind of men. I'm just saying it's just.
You're wanting a balance.
There's got to be a balance.
There needs to be a balance, and we need to work towards that balance.
Yeah, that's what
Because definitely,
yes,
you know,
because then it makes the real abuse not so. There's real abuse out there, and there are real victims. And these sometimes, I think, in the Me Too movement, I'm not sure if they're victims like. You know, what we would call real victims.
We're in such a society where everybody's a victim nowadays. Everybody can make themselves a victim, you know. This happened to me or this
Exactly.
I enjoyed this segment. Thank you, ladies. Thank you for sharing.
Thanks for spending your time with us. We hope that it was enlightening, entertaining, and encouraging. We do need your feedback. We want your feedback. Give us a thumbs up if you liked it. Give us a thumbs down if you didn't. And if you give us a thumbs down, we need that comments. We need to know how to make this the best it can be so that it can be a blessing to you. All right. And don't forget to subscribe. You don't have to pay anything for that. All that's going to do is when we put the next episode up, you're going to get notified. All right. Thanks. And may the Lord bless you.